All right, welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're tuning in today because we're tackling a topic that, honestly, usually brings on a sense of dread, but it absolutely shouldn't. We're talking about the Nebraska DMV. Let's reframe this whole thing right from the jump. Navigating the driver licensing process isn't some chaotic, bureaucratic nightmare. It's actually a super clear, step-by-step journey to unlocking your license and your independence on the open road. And with the right roadmap, you're going to breeze through this process completely stress-free. So here is our exact roadmap for today. Number 1, gathering your required documents. 2, passing the DMV tests. 3, test results and issuance. And finally, number 4, managing your license. Okay, let's dive straight into Section 1, gathering your required documents. There are 3 mandatory buckets of documents that every single applicant must bring to the table. First up, proof of U.S. citizenship or lawful status. Second, you need 2 documents proving your principal address in Nebraska. And third, your social security number or proof of exemption if that applies to you. Now, here is a really vital detail. If you're a first-time applicant, you obviously must bring proof of citizenship. But if you are a non-U.S. citizen, you have to bring proof of your lawful status on every single visit to the DMV. You definitely cannot forget that one. Now, the DMV does not mess around with identity documents. Certified state birth certificates, valid U.S. passports, unexpired permanent resident cards, those are perfect. But photocopies? Not going to cut it. Fax copies? Denied. Hospital-issued certificates? Yeah, those won't work either. And a very specific heads up here. Puerto Rican birth certificates issued prior to September 30th, 2010 will also be rejected. You absolutely have to bring the real, raised seal paperwork, or you are literally just guaranteeing yourself a second trip. Moving on to proving where you live, the crucial thing to remember here is the strict 2-document rule. You need 2 forms of proof for your principal address. And here's the kicker. They have to come from 2 different issuing sources. So a bank statement and a pay stub issued within the last 90 days? That works great. A vehicle registration alongside a lease agreement? Also perfect. But whatever you do, do not bring a P.O. box address. A P.O. box will absolutely never be accepted as your principal residence. No exceptions. And keep a really close eye out for this exact phrase, not to be used for proof of identification. If any document you bring has this stamped on it, the examiner is going to stop right there. Preparing your paperwork meticulously is literally the #1 way to ensure a smooth single visit. Do not let a silly little stamp send you packing. All right, moving right along to Section 2, passing the DMV test. The testing phase is a very straightforward 3-step process. Step 1 is the vision test, which is going to check both your visual acuity and your peripheral vision. Now, if you need corrective lenses to pass this, they will be required on your license, and you've got to wear them whenever you're driving. Simple enough. Step 2 is the written test, which just tests your knowledge of the class-specific driver's manual. And Step 3 is the big one, the drive test, measuring your practical ability to operate a vehicle safely out on the road. Now for the drive test, you literally have to bring your own car. The vehicle has to be furnished by you, the applicant, and it actually has to pass a quick checklist before the examiner even gets in the passenger seat. It needs to be in good mechanical condition with working brake lights, a functional speedometer, and a clean interior. And definitely pay attention to the seatbelts. If your car is a model year 1964 or later, it needs a working passenger belt. If it's a 1973 model or newer, it requires both clean, working driver and passenger seatbelts. So hey, if you're bringing a vintage ride to the test, just make sure it meets those era-specific codes. Once you're actually out on the road, your examiner is basically just looking for mastery of the basics. We're talking starting and stopping smoothly, executing proper right and left turns, maintaining correct lane usage and position, and obviously obeying all stop signs and traffic signals. They're also going to be closely monitoring your speed control, how you handle right-of-way situations, and, of course, your parking and backing skills. But let's just take a quick breath here and ask the question that is probably hanging out in the back of everyone's mind. What actually happens if you fail a test? It's perfectly natural to have a little anxiety about this, so let's just address it head-on. The consequences really aren't that scary if you know the rules. If you fail any test, the main rule is simply that you cannot retake it on the exact same day. If your issuance is denied for some sort of paperwork issue, you'll be handed a return for services form, explaining exactly why, and you just bring that back next time. The biggest hurdle? Well, if you fail the drive test 3 successive times, you hit a bit of a pause button. At that point, you have to either complete a DMV-approved driver training course or hold a learner's permit for at least 90 days before you can try again. Which brings us to Section 3, test results and issuance. Okay, so picture this. Day 0. Right after you pass, the driver licensing staff hands you an issuance certificate. You then have up to 90 days to take that specific certificate to a county treasurer or a designated state office, pay your required fee, and you'll get a 30-day paper receipt. Once that fee is paid, the hard part is over. Your permanent hard copy license will show up at your address via U.S. mail in about 20 days. Now, I need to give you a massive warning right here. That 30-day paper receipt is totally fine for legally driving your car, but the Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, does not accept that 30-day receipt as valid identification. If you try to use it to board an airplane or enter a federal building, you are going to face an absolute security nightmare. So always, always keep your old ID or just bring a passport if you're traveling before your permanent card arrives in the mail. And finally, let's look at Section 4, Managing Your License. So here are the exact timelines you're going to need to know to keep things valid. If you're under 21, your license will expire right on your 21st birthday, and you can start that renewal process 60 days beforehand. If you're 21 and older, your license expires every 5 years on your birthday, and you get a generous 90-day window to renew. Crucially, though, state statute dictates that if you change your name or you move to a new address, you have a strict 60-day deadline to update your license. And the really good news, if you're under 72, you might be eligible to handle renewals and replacements entirely online. The DMV also has some very clear protocols for special circumstances. Active duty military personnel stationed outside Nebraska get a fantastic extension. Their license actually remains valid while on active duty and for 60 days after discharge using a little card called Form 0708. For disabled applicants, the DMV is completely ready to provide accommodations, provided you contact them prior to testing to set all that up. And regarding medical concerns, Nebraska law allows physicians or law enforcement to request a DMV recall to re-examine a driver's physical or visual capabilities if safety ever becomes a real concern. Before we completely wrap up this explainer, I want to share a surprising and really meaningful number with you: $1. When you were standing there, finalizing your paperwork and paying your fees, you have the option to check a little box and donate just $1 single to promote the Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness and Education Fund. And that dollar actually ties right into the broader civic options available right at the DMV counter. If you say yes to organ and tissue donation, a small heart symbol is placed on the front of your card. And thanks to Nebraska's first-person legislation, that decision is legally protected and cannot be rescinded by anyone else after your passing. On top of that, through the Motor Voter program, you can seamlessly register to vote at the exact same time you apply for your license. Your voter card simply gets mailed to you within 30 days. It is incredibly efficient. So we've covered the documents, we went through the tests, the timelines, and the lifelong management of your driving privileges. The whole process is clear, it's logical, and it's totally manageable. So I'll leave you with this. Are you fully prepared to grab those certified documents, master that checklist, and confidently hit the road? I absolutely think you are. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and safe driving out there in Nebraska.